Well, as you can see, I've been joined by Patrick. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Now, CLIA members will recognise you. You've spoken at a couple of CLIA events. In fact, you were our highest rated speaker at our event.
Awesome. I must have been saying something right amongst all the gibberish.
No, and clearly well rated by our guests. So thank you for your time today. We should start by talking a bit about you. You are a renowned and famous filmmaker. But how did you get into that? You're a great wildlife expert and a great advocate for wildlife. How did your career take you there?
So I always had a passion for how things work, for science and technology. Tomorrow's World was one of my favorite shows. I used to watch that religiously when I was younger. Yeah, amazing. And obviously watched Attenborough's shows as well, wildlife documentaries. I remember being a kid, we'd sit down in front of the TV with my parents, and all we wanted to watch at the time were documentaries on lions. We didn't care about anything else, just lions, lion prides, and just couldn't get enough of it. It's so bizarre thinking back to it. And so, yeah, I always loved watching TV in general. And I think that because I had that interest in this weird visual medium, I just kind of gravitated towards it. So once I finished my degree at uni, I studied cellular molecular biology. Well, actually, technically, it was a degree in cancer biology. But you in order to learn about cancer, you need to learn about how the body works, how biology in itself, from its most fundamental kind of building blocks, work. So that was cellular molecular biology and genetics. I ended up doing a master's in science communication, and both of those degrees were in Bristol. And it was as I was finishing those degrees, or kind of halfway through, I realized. Actually, it was just before I finished my first degree, I realized that I kind of had this early life crisis, is what I like to call it, because I realized that once I finish uni, for many young people, that's the first time you're exposed to the real world. And then all of a sudden, this train track that you've been on since you were, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, it now comes to an abrupt end. And nobody really talks about finding a job that you love when you're younger. So essentially, I realized I didn't want to be in a lab. I love finding out about science, but I wanted to be able to talk to people. So I thought, okay, what are my biggest talents? Acting and performing and science. And so that's when I settled on, okay, I want to be a wildlife TV presenter. And then I had to try and figure out how to do that. In very short terms, I ended up getting a job as a runner. That's the entry level in film and in the film and TV industry. And I just worked my backside off. Started out serving teas and coffees, which my parents were super unimpressed about.
I can imagine.
Yeah, right. But I mean, I just persevered. I ended up working on 2 shows with Sir David Attenborough as a researcher. And then I eventually got my big break, which was I got a screen test, and the rest is old news. It kind of took off from there. But it really came from a passion of loving science, finding out how the world works, and also communicating with people. That's the main thing.
And working in television always sounds really glamorous and very highbrow and very exciting. Is that the reality?
Not all the time. And you know this. So one of the challenges when you're making films that people don't often talk about, because I think it sounds like you're making excuses, but I think that it's important to understand that if you're working in an industry where you're traveling a lot of the time, it does take a big toll on your body. I recall there was like a 3 or 4 week period where I'd gone to Australia twice in the space of a week or 2 weeks. I ended up having to go to South America, then over to South Africa, and by the end of it, it's very hard to enjoy it at that point. And I do mean that seriously, because you have to look after your body. Yeah. Your body works to a circadian rhythm. You know when the daytime is and nighttime is, and your body clock goes to that rhythm. And so once you start disturbing that, you you start to lose it a little bit, I have to be honest. So that is a really big challenge, and you have to be very careful with where you're going, giving yourself and the crew enough time to adjust. That is the biggest challenge. The others are a bit more fun, and so you know this story. There was I was filming for my first series. We were filming a story about skunks and how they use scent as a deterrent. It was for a series called Super Senses: The Secret Power of Animals. It went out on BBC Two a couple of years back. Really great fun. And for this, we were, like I said, talking about skunks. And as part of the story, I was helping a pest control manager to get rid of some skunks. And yeah, you can guess what happened. He was like, "Oh, you can help me put the skunk in this cage." And yeah, I ended up with a skunk spraying me in the face, went in my mouth, on my eyes, up my nose. It was like seriously disgusting. So yeah, not always as glamorous as it may seem, but good fun.
But similarly, there must have been moments where you kind of had to pinch yourself and think that you're one of the, you get to really on the front line of interacting with wildlife and some of the amazing destinations that you visited.
Yeah, definitely. One that always comes to mind was filming for a series called Big Beasts, The Last of the Giants. That was for Sky, and we wanted to really kind of highlight how big some of these animals get. In particular, we were looking at sperm whales. They are one of the, if not the biggest predator on the planet. The biggest brains of all animals on the planet. Each one of their teeth weighs about 1 kilogram. So quite formidable animals, about 20 tons in weight, 20 to 25 meters in length. And I had the incredible, mind-blowing experience of free diving with them in Dominica. So it was really scary. You get into the water, the crew's filming, waiting, watching you. I've never done this before in my life. I've never free dived in my life. And so you're now in this position where you want to be safe, but you're having this incredible encounter. You're trying to absorb it, but you're meant to be telling a story. So you're trying to think of where the camera is and where the crew is, thinking about the facts that you want to say at the right time. So really intense, but I love that because the faces of people when they see that, that all that effort kind of distills down to, and it goes on to inspire. I've had so many parents and kids get in touch on Facebook and on my social platforms saying how excited they are to see those stories. It really does make it all worth it. That's the best part.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. And is there a favorite moment of yours? Is there a moment that you suddenly thought, you know what, this is what I've trained for and worked towards?
I think it was that moment with the sperm whale, because there was a moment where we were filming. We had an underwater cameraman who was finning alongside me. He was just in front and he was signaling to go faster because he needed to get the right angle to film me and the sperm whale as we're swimming. That's the most ridiculous statement ever. But in order to do that, so I was trying to speed up, but as I sped up, then the sperm whale started to swim faster. And I was like, I just can't keep up. And so I slowed down. And as I slowed down, she slowed down to match my speed, and goosebumps. You can imagine, you're just thinking, wow, that was the moment where I was like, that's not a thing, that's a being. And I was about 2 meters away from her eye. I could see this eye of this massive 20 meters long, creature. And that interaction was really special. It's something you can't, your brain, our brains, and the way that our society works is not geared for that experience. And so when it happens, it really is quite profound. It is quite overwhelming, but it does, your mind just kind of transcends into another level where you really kind of understand our place on the planet and in the universe a bit, in a way that's really deep.
You're joining us this week because it's Expedition Cruise Week. So in terms of the different continents you've visited, the wildlife presumably is very distinct to those regions. So is there a region that you particularly love based on the wildlife that you see?
Yeah, I've got to say that there are a couple of different places. Southeast Asia is great. You know, you've got really dense, thick jungles. I filmed orangutans there, lar gibbons. What else? We filmed whale sharks in Ningaloo Reef, which is on the western coast of Australia. But I've got to say that for me, it's Africa is she is the jewel, you know, when it comes to wildlife experiences and just the landscape. You know, I think that over the years, Africa has kind of, I feel it polarizes people, because for many, they assume that Africa is a place where most people are starving, where there's hunger, famine, drought, people live in mud huts. But it's so much bigger and grander than what you see on TV. There are cities, there's commerce, there's business. There are mud huts, just the same way that you have thatched roofs in the countryside in the UK. But the landscape is just stunning, and the sunsets are just to die for. And I think that anybody that has the opportunity to go to Africa, I'm talking about sub-Saharan Africa, of course, the entire continent is beautiful. But once you get to, I don't know, whether it's a Kenya, a Tanzania, Ghana, Namibia, it's just, I like to think that most people, regardless of whether they've been there or not, when they do go, it feels like they're home.
Oh, really?
You feel like, oh, okay, Africa. You get it. You're like, oh, wow, this place is amazing. So I would say that most of the African continent is so vast. You can fit the States inside in Africa 3 times. So that's how big it is. I think it's an incredible place. Lots of exploring, lots of amazing animals and species to check out.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to been to a couple of places, and it is an amazing place, an amazing destination. You kind of never forget. You do lots of talks and discussions with a lot of people. Do you get a sense that people want to visit more places and see more authentic destinations and experience different things?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely think so. And you can see that just when you look at social media feeds, people who aren't traditionally known as wildlife experts or conservationists are really conscious of our position on the planet and how we affect the world. And that's because, you know, I think people are becoming more and more aware of the fact that our impact does matter. So you might be a fashion blogger or a model. Well, the clothes that you wear, the glasses that you put on, the makeup that goes on your skin, all of those things come from natural resources. So you could be a baker, you could be into loving chocolate and peanut butter, brownies and cookies. All those things have the way that they're grown, the palm oil that might be used in them. It's not, being a conservationist it no longer requires you to be a biology expert. You can be a lawyer, you can be a businesswoman. So I think we now understand that being a conservationist is something that everybody can do in their own way. And so that then creates this excitement around getting out to see the world and having a positive impact. I definitely feel that when it comes to traveling, whether that's on cruises or people going on safaris, or even if they're going on holidays, Ibiza, I've had friends that go to Ibiza, enjoy the club scene, but they really want to be able to just go away and see another side of the island. And so if people who are going to have a great raving time in in Ibiza and see their favorite DJs and go to some of the mega clubs, want to go and see wildlife and natural spaces and environments, then I think that kind of shows how important it is to all of us. And I think there's a really big appetite for it, and something that the travel industry can really make the most of,
Yes, absolutely. Now you have some TV coming up on Sky, which sounds really exciting. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so a new series coming out on next week, Sunday. So what date is that? Is that the 31st? Let me just have a quick check.
Yes.
It is, Sunday the 31st. It's called Wild Animal Babies. It's coming out as part of the launch of Sky, one of Sky's new channels, Sky Nature. And yeah, it's all about, like the title says, wild animal babies. And we look at it from 3 different perspectives: from single born animals, those that are born into kind of smaller groups of siblings, 2 to 3, and then those that are outnumbered, so where they're just born en masse. And so whether it's looking at how a mother elephant is teaching her young how to use its trunk. We don't really think about the fact that an elephant needs to learn how to use its trunk. I think that it's really well known for, but it's full of thousands of different muscle fibers that the young calf needs to learn how to use. And when you look at young elephants, you can see they're moving their trunk. It's like they got like a bit of wiggly spaghetti on the end of their on their faces, because they just don't know how to use it yet. So we look at elephants, we look at meerkats and how they interact, and how they've got this strategy where the young will beg for food, they call for food, and that releases a stress hormone in the adults, which then causes them to look for more food and feed the young. So it's kind of like when the kid's like, "Mom, Dad, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry." And then we also look at those that are outnumbered. So that reminds me of one of the filming trips. We went to Costa Rica to film olive ridley turtles, and their strategy: the females come up onto the beaches, they lay as many eggs as possible, hundreds of eggs in each clutch, and then once they finally are ready to emerge, they tend to hatch en masse over a couple of days.
Wow.
And that's it. The reason why that happens is it kind of offers an inherent protection, because there are vultures, other predators that are looking for an easy meal. But because they're all coming out at the same time, eventually those predators get full, and then these millions and millions of little baby turtles can make it out to sea. So lots of different strategies from the parents and from the young to try and make it to adulthood.
So that's Sunday the 31st of May.
Sunday 31st on Sky Nature, wild animal babies. It's an absolute cute fest.
It sounds really cool. You're also on YouTube, I should mention. So tell us about that, how they find that.
Yeah, so I was inspired by the fact that everybody's feeling pretty down, and it's been an odd time for many of us during the COVID-19 lockdown. And so I'm running these live shows on my YouTube channel, Patrick Goes Wild. The kind of series strand I'm calling Wild and Live, and it's just a way of entertaining and educating kids, parents, and people, wildlife lovers alike. We look at I try and give people it's like a little ray of sunshine, and just fill it with lots of different weird, wonderful animal facts. And then we also, through the help of our guests, which are filmmakers, conservationists, biologists, we get a little insight into some of the work that they're doing to try and protect either the habitats or the species themselves. So yeah, really good fun.
And you're right, we all need a ray of
sunshine. You're able to tune in. Sorry, go ahead.
We all need a ray of sunshine these days.
Yeah, we do.
And then finally, if they can't find you on all of those platforms, you also have a podcast.
Yeah, I'm literally taking every single platform by storm, aren't I, Andy? You're not going to be able to.
You're doing well, Patrick.
Get rid of me. So yeah, I've got this podcast which was produced in conjunction with the BBC World Service. So it went out. It's made for everybody. It's called 30 Animals That Made Us Smarter. It's essentially the story of biomimicry, which is the process of looking at nature, natural systems, and then seeing if we can learn, or what we can learn from Mother Nature, taking the blueprint that's been going on for millions, if not billions of years, and then applying them to our kind of human system. So one of the first story that we cover is how a Japanese engineer who was designing the next generation of bullet trains, these are really fast trains in Japan, he was inspired by looking at kingfishers and how their beak is shaped in such a way that when this kingfisher dives into water, it's able to kind of slide through the water as opposed to kind of pushing it. So, you listen to the podcast, it's really great, but really interesting concepts of how we're taking, the blueprint of nature and applying it to human technologies.
We still have a lot to learn as humans.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. We really look forward to seeing you in person at one of our events at some point when we're able to do so. But in the meantime,
yeah, for sure.
thank you, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks for having me. Take care.